Good evening. Welcome to the Siloam Springs Board of Directors Annual Budget Meeting. I will turn this over to Christine.
Good evening. This evening we're going to pick up where we left off at courts, and court revenue begins on page 23. Revenue will remain relatively flat. There's a projected decrease in civil and small claims fees due to fewer filings. Expenses begin on page 24. Sorry about the scrolling. So, personnel expense increased 5%, including the wage increases from the COLA and comp plan. Operations decreased by $61,000. In 2022, a company was hired to scan all filed documents for just over $60,000. And on page 25, capital includes a project to renovate the employee offices for $400,000, and this includes updating staff restrooms to meet ADA compliance, providing ballistic panels to the bond window area and to the courtroom, and remodeling and updating staff office areas, remodeling and updating the courtroom. Page 26, there are no changes to the personnel schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Hey, Christina.
Yes.
So, so as I'm looking back at this, in 2022 we did 130. In 2022 it shows another 130, and then we're at 400. So what did remind me? What did we do with the 130? What remodeling was done?
So the 130 was the public restrooms, making them ADA. And what happened was, and the reason why it says 130 and 130 is because we weren't able to get all of the supplies, materials that we needed in before the end of the year, so we budgeted it again for this year. So this current capital outlay is to do some other areas, just the employee areas, the courtroom, the materials. What is it? What did you call that special material? Ballistic material underneath the court windows and such.
I got all that, but on the remodeling of staff, what's the remodel? I mean, what's that entail? Are we updating electronics? Is it, putting new curtains up? Is it just, how do you remodel? I'm just thinking of that building and the money we put in it over the X number of years. And
right. So last year when we did the court bathroom remodel, we also created a security access to where staff and the public are separate. So it's to continue that and automate some of that components to allow key fob access, because now we have deputies and bailiffs. And so as we visit with them about what potentially needed to be done for security, we included that in that as well. The building was built in 1965, so it doesn't meet a lot of ADA current regulations. So we're going to try to bring that into focus as well in the staff area. And then the judge before, Judge Thomas, had a very small, I think it was really a supply closet as an office. And so we're looking to, we've already moved Judge Anglin over to the staff corridor and then upgrade those offices to be more conducive for staff use. And then there's a few vaults in there that are older, and we don't really know where the key is, or not aware of anybody have the combination. So when we did the upgrade to scan all those files, a lot of that space is not needed as well, since we've now put them into digital files.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Library revenue begins on page 27. Revenue decreased 24,000 with an expected reduction in grants of 25,000. Expenditures begin on page 28. The personnel decrease of 4% includes a 9% increase in salaries and wages, but it is offset by a reduction in the benefit pay and health claims. Benefit pay included a retirement payout in 2022, and changes in staff resulted in changes to benefit elections. Operations decreased 3,400 or 2%. Insurance costs increased 20,000 based on trend. 20% based on trend. Grant expenditures will decrease approximately 12,000. Capital outlay is on page 29. And there's no capital outlay for 2023. And on page 30, there are no changes to the personnel schedule.
I do have a question. Grant expenditures is 0. Does that mean they're not going to try to apply for any kind of grants?
The grant that they received was actually a CARES Act grant.
Okay.
And so it's not something that, it was something that was just provided to them through the state. Did you have any?
And if there are any grants that they would pursue, we would, of course, bring them to you to ask for approval to apply for the grant, and then bring them to you to get
Okay.
the budget for the expenditure.
Okay. Thank you.
Community development is next. And that includes planning, engineering, code enforcement, and the animal shelter. Revenue for that begins on page 31. Overall, revenues will decrease by 29,000 or 6%, and this is mainly due to decreased building and related permits based on trend.
Does that mean that our the forecast for building is decreasing a little bit?
Expenditures begin on page 32. Personnel costs increased 122,000 or 8%. This change includes the proposed raises for the COLA and the comp plan and changes in benefit elections.
I see that professional fees are going down quite a bit. Is there a reason?
Yes. So professional, the board had the goal of the comprehensive plan, and that was budgeted in 21, and it was completed in 22.
That makes sense. But utilities are going up quite a bit. Is that?
Yes, utilities are expected to increase 13.7 thousand, and the department's taking over utilities at the old Parks building.
Okay.
That had been previously paid for by the Parks Department.
Okay.
System support and supplies is increasing 16,500 for economic development software. And this was originally paid for by the administration fund in lieu of retail developer contract. The capital outlay on page 33 includes a new vehicle to replace a 2012 Ford Escape, a GPS base station, and the second phase of the 412 medium upgrades for 263, which we will not be.
That's the one that we voted down?
That's the one you voted no on, correct. And personnel is on page 34, and there are no changes to the personnel schedule.
Christina,
Yes.
what are we replacing the 2012 Ford Escape with?
Hoping to
Uh-oh, got bumped.
So I believe we're budgeting for a truck replacement currently today. So that vehicle came over with the electrical inspector that when we moved them over to community development. And so that electrical inspector is now doing more than just electrical inspections, do all building inspections. So it would also allow them to carry their equipment that they take to use when they're measuring slopes or percentages of the concrete, drainage, whatever they're doing.
Are you getting a Ford Lightning? We're not there yet? Okay,
No, not there
just
yet.
keep throwing it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Electrical vehicle or something? What is it?
Huh?
Chevy Bolt.
Yeah, it's the Ford's new electric pickup.
Okay, I got
It's
you.
their F-150.
I got you. Understood.
So infrastructure, that revenue begins on page 35, and this is the anticipated reimbursement amount for labor as a percent of payroll. Expenditures begin on page 36. Personnel costs will increase by almost $41,000. Salaries and wages increased 13%, offset by changes of employee benefit elections. Operations increased by $27,000 or 23%. Insurance increased 24% or $7,000. Vehicle operations increased $10,000 due to fuel increases. Dues and training is increasing to accommodate CDL license training, which is now costs a minimum of $2,500 per person. Capital is listed on page 37. Capital includes replacement of a 2002 truck with over 106,000 miles on it, which was not replaced in 2022 due to price increases. And on page 38, there are no changes to the personnel schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Do we go through you or through Steve? Or now that Dawn ran away? How's this working?
Typically, if you'll just ask me the question, and if I can't answer it, I will pass it along.
I love this one. Let me make one up. No, so detention basin modifications, and we don't have any for 23, and we had the workshop, and we've had a lot of discussion. I'm just curious, are we still deciding on any modernization of any of the basins, or is it something that we're still working on? Or the engineer left and now we're just starting over? I'm curious how this is all working out. Oh, good, I thought I'd get you.
Yeah, I like the way this mic goes too.
No, this works
I
out.
don't have to look up at you like this while I'm trying to talk in the mic. Now, detention, the modifications, to be honest with you, I don't think we have anything lined out yet. Because we did the one over on, well, that's actually a contractor on Willow Court. But as far as building another one or anything that's going to involve this kind of money, we're just doing cleaning right now. We're cleaning them out.
I'm just curious of man, I just think what's out there and what's happening now, and whether weather patterns are, we go from drought to torrential downpours, and GPS gate. I mean, I could go through the list of it, and My concern is that, we're just gonna move on. I feel like every year we should be upgrading even existing basins at some level, right? I mean, that's the trend that's happening in Northwest Arkansas specifically, and I hate to see us miss a year and then, you know, this board's gonna be back up or after an event, and I feel like the public feels like we should be doing something every year to help mitigate those things and as they are existing. And I know Bland was on board with that, and I just, you know, I'm not gonna be around I'm gonna be around at 23, but I'm just trying to give you, I mean, I feel like that's what's gonna happen, and I know some of these board members here are not gonna let that sleep. So I feel like we should be throwing some sort of bone at it, at least to make the public feel like we are concerned with these upgrades of existing. And I'm not talking about fencing, I'm talking about, you know, the mitigation level, you know, plants, you know, gate technology, just the different trends that are out there. And I just hate for us to miss a year of doing something.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Steve, this detention basin modifications was Willow Court, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that was one where we had a number of problems with that one long-term. Is that correct?
Well, that one actually wasn't even built yet.
Okay.
On the land, but we hadn't built it.
So, Director Burns, I agree with you on the fact that since the city engineer left, one of the things he was working on before he left was to try to update some of the drainage manual specific things to try to incorporate some of the things that we wanted to do. So we're going to have to push that back a little bit until we can get moving on that again. If there's any specific modifications that the board would like us to look at, you know, from our standpoint, I think all of the drainage basins today, or at least the drainage detention ponds, are working as they're required to work. As we get more and more rainfall, if we're careful, we might be able to hold more of that water back by increasing a gate or something along those lines. But those detention ponds were typically sized and determined to have so much volume in them to begin with. So if we start increasing the gate height or something, we may end up flooding somebody upstream that wasn't intended to flood. We have let a number of detention basins grow up and try to do some water quality stuff. I think there's better ways to do it now with the knowledge in the Parks Department about the right plants. We previously had one on the north side of town, north central side of town, that we allowed to grow up, and it got away from us, and we had to go in there and clear cut it or clear it all back out, simply because of the fact of allowing it to grow up. It got to the point where it wouldn't hold the amount of water that it needed to hold. So there's this delicate balance. But if we have a specific project, even though we might not have budget money in here to do some issue that comes before us, we'll come back and ask the board to amend the budget. As of right now, we don't have any specific program to go back into those drainage basins and do any particular improvements on a holistic sort of view. But that's not to say that we aren't looking at it based on trying to update those previously approved drainage manuals and trying to figure out what we're going to do going forward because of the intensive rainfall that we're getting and how to deal with that.
Thank you.
Steve, I do have a question on that. I know, like on sidewalks and on the streets, we have kind of a game plan of what we're doing, where we're going, and what needs most attention, and, you know, kind of a 1, 2, 3 on it. It was my understanding that we had something similar to that with the detention basins and such, where we were keeping those monitored to where we, you know, we're not caught off guard with them.
Yeah, we have a drainage maintenance plan.
Okay.
So, but it's just that, it's maintaining what we currently have. Like, whereas detention basin modifications, I take that as we have a detention basin, but we're gonna make it bigger and better. And that's generally what we wait for from engineering to come to us to look at and say, yeah, we can do that, or no, that's gonna be too big. But what you're talking about, yeah, we have a plan in place for the maintenance.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions related to that fund?
I do want to say something. A while back, a couple months ago, I asked Philip to send me a copy of all the detention basins around city of Siloam Springs. And I really think it'd benefit all the directors to have a copy of that. Because what I asked for specifically is the map, the location, the exact location. And then that way we can see, like Brad said, because we do need to stay on top of it. And so having that data would really help all the directors, if we can get that to all the directors.
Maintenance revenue begins on page 39. And revenue is based on historical trends related to sales at auction. Expenditures begin on page 40. Personnel costs increased over 29,000 or 10%. The wage increases are included as well as healthcare costs increases. Operations increased 7,800. Utilities increased by almost 7,500 based on trend. System support and supplies increased 6,700 for diagnostic software not on the server. Ground and building maintenance decreased by 5,000. And 22's budget included funds to add a shower, upgrade lighting, and repair flooring. Capital outlay is on page 41. Major expenses include a waste oil furnace and a brake lathe. Personnel is on page 42. And there are no changes to the personnel schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Yes, I have a question or a comment. How are they liking the new facility and ease of use and all the things that go along with it?
Smile a lot.
Okay. It looks really good. I like it.
Questions related to this fund? Okay. Finance, which also includes IT and utility billing. That revenue begins on page 43. And revenue decreased based on historical auction sales and old receivables that are still being paid on. Expenditures begin on page 44. Personnel increases are due to the proposed raise and the two purchasing positions moving from the electric department to this budget, and the total increase is 240,000 or 22%. And that is without purchasing, without moving those individuals over into the finance budget, the total increase is 5.5%. Operations increased 1% or $7,500, mainly due to postage increasing 21% due to growth of the city and postage cost increases, with another 6% expected in June of next year. Capital outlay is on page 45. Capital includes a core switch replacement at the electric department. IT replaces one switch each year. And building security upgrades phase 2 for $54,000 and a virtual machine host replacement for $22,500. Personnel on page 46. The only changes are that the 2 purchasing positions are now reflected in this schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Christina, I've got a question. On the expenses page 44, I know there's no change, but $430,000 for software license renewal. I just want the public to know we pay a lot to renew our software every year. Is that for everything, or is it just finance? Is it
Oh, that's for everything at
every
every
across the
department,
company?
every
Yeah,
department,
I mean
anything
across
that
the
lives
city.
on the city server. Yeah.
And so what kind? Just examples of like what kind of software?
So you've got your watch guard for the police department, along with their dispatch software. You've got fire software. You've got
What you guys use in
you've
finance,
got
of course.
what we use in
Yeah.
finance. You've
Yeah.
got what they use in HR. You've got what is used.
So many people out in the public just think once you buy software, that's it.
No, you have to.
Yeah, and you have to keep up with upgrades as well. So I just wanted the public to know, because often they don't realize some behind the scenes costs that are not something that's just, and we're lucky it's not gone up this year. There was a big jump 2 years ago, but it's still something you always have to pay and you always have to keep up with. And
Microsoft is changing its billing, and so we've been trying to juggle that to keep that cost down. Like, what services out of that do we need? But
Well, it's
I
not
think
like
so.
buying Quicken and being able to use it for 5 years at home. So I'm just saying it's a
Accurate.
different thing with.
Can you
The
still do
corporate and-
that?
and
I'm
city.
sorry, Quicken doesn't let me do that
No, I
anymore,
don't
so-
use Quicken, no. I'm lucky to be able to get the Microsoft Word up to date. They're always changing that. But I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Christina.
Are there any other questions related to this fund? We'll move on to electric. That revenue begins on page 47. The one thing I would point out here is it used to be that the power cost was a negative revenue, but we've moved that down into cost of goods sold. So gross sales are expected to increase by 16% or $4 million based on trend. Penalties are expected to increase 83,000 based on trend. Service extension fees are up 102% based on trend. Expenditures begin on page 48, but actually your cost of goods sold, I'm sorry, is still here on page 47. So the increase of 21% is due to increased consumption of electricity.
Did you put it under cost of goods sold, or?
Yes, there's a separate, underneath the revenue, there's a separate section for cost of goods sold. So personnel on page 48 There's an 8% increase in personnel costs due to both the wage increase and changes in personnel. In operations, administrative department charges is increasing $143,000, in part to cover the cost of reclassifying 2 positions to the general fund and for increased overhead cost allocated to each fund. Insurance is increasing 20%. Vehicle operation is increasing $40,000 due to rising fuel costs. Materials and supply maintenance expense is increasing 13% based on trend. Depreciation increased almost $53,000 based on equipment placed in service. And total operations increased 11% or $323,000. The transfer from the electric fund increased $481,000. All transfers from the utilities in 2023 are based on policy. Capital begins on page 49. Overall, capital outlay increased to $319,000. There's your total. Some of the larger projects this year include updates to the South Feeder Loop for $360,000, general line extensions of $1.5 million split between general and 3/8 sales tax funded capital, and $200,000 for traffic signal detection. Personnel on page 50 includes a request for 2 new linemen, and the 2 purchasing positions are moved to the finance budget. There also is a request to replace a groundsman position as a lineman, and these requests are reflected in the schedule. Are there any questions related to this fund?
I have a question. How are we doing in preparing for the future with all the subdivisions going in and supply channels slowed down, if not halted in some cases? Do we feel like we have a grasp on what's going on for next year and are in control, or are we kind of hands tied behind our backs?
We're in good shape, Director Carroll. We have our substations are large enough for the growth that we have in the foreseeable future. We have concerns, like you've noticed, the South Feeder Loop. We spend some money on that to get it upgraded. We're always asking the what-if scenarios. If we lose one GRDA substation, what will happen to our lines coming in from the other substation? And so we want to upgrade this South Feeder in case that happens. But transformers have been a challenge, get them in, but we're hanging in there. With our subdivision growth, we're really looking at upgrading some lines. We've added some more money for our new construction on our lines. So it's been a challenge, but we got good people and we're staying up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Water revenue begins on page 51. And overall revenues are expected to increase by $223,000. 5/8 sales tax account is budgeted based on 2022 receipts, as previously discussed, resulting in a 9% increase. Water revenue will decrease 1%. This is a 1% increase over 2022 projections. The main driver for this decrease is the sales to Watts, which declined significantly after they made repairs to their infrastructure, resulting in less water loss. Government grants decreased by 50,000, and the 2022 revised budget included a grant for fluoridation equipment. Page 52 begins expenditures, starting with water administration. Personnel costs increased due to the proposed COLA and compensation plan. And operations increased 78,000. 51,000 is for increased administrative department charges, and 20,000 is for increased insurance costs. Principal payments for the water treatment plant began in 2022. The city will apply as much of the accumulated 5/8 sales tax as available, up to $11,500,000. And in 2023, the city will again pay as much debt as collections allow for, but this will only be around $3 million. Capital outlay is listed on page 55. So I will hit capital outlay when we get to page 55. On page 53, the water plant. Overall, personnel costs increased 10% due to the proposed COLA and compensation plan. Total operation costs increased 69%. Equipment maintenance decreased by 10,000 based on trend. Chemicals decreased by 10,000 also based on trend. But depreciation increased 804,000 or 119%, mainly due to the water treatment plant upgrades. Page 54 is the water services. The 3% increase in personnel costs includes the COLA and compensation plan. However, they were also paying previously 35% of the purchasing manager's salary. Now all of that is in the general fund, in finance. Overall operations decreased 2% or 19,000. Water maintenance decreased 33,000 or 22%. Prior year included a higher number of meter replacements. And depreciation remained relatively flat. So capital outlay, which is listed on page 55, has decreased this year by almost 500,000 from 2022. And that's excluding the budget amendment for the water treatment plant of 4.1 million. Budgeted projects include AMI water meter replacements for 225,000, general line extensions for 225,000, and that amount is split between general and 3/8 funding. And the city will also repay $233,334 from depreciation funds towards the dam reconstruction at our water intake. On page 56, personnel. There are no changes to this personnel schedule. So are there any questions?
Christina? So on the dam reconstruction, it's a no-interest loan. What are we out? Another 2 payments?
Yes. So Yeah, that was a steal of a deal, 700,000.
Yeah,
Total.
I was just looking at that, and so that's 24, that'll be on, right? Okay.
Is this the first one is this year by December, so yes, in 24 that will be gone. Are there any other questions related to this? The wastewater revenue begins on page 57. Overall, revenues are expected to decline 3%. Here again, sales to Watts impacts the revenue, and a 1% increase is budgeted based on projected 2022 revenue. Expenditures for water administration begin on page 58. Personnel costs increase due to the proposed wage increases. Operations increased 16%, or almost 76,000. Administrative department charges increased almost 58,000. Insurance increased 15% due to increased property insurance. Debt service remained relatively flat. And transfers decreased by 46,000, or 3%. Wastewater plant on page 59. Overall, personnel costs increased 1%. The driver for this decrease is the proposed wage increases, offset by changes in both benefit elections and personnel. Total operation costs increased 4%, or 63,000. Utilities are up 9% based on trend. Equipment maintenance is up 7,000 based on trend. Chemicals are down 14,000 based on trend. Payments to contractors is down. Prior year included $20,400 for programming of SCADA software. Landfill fees are up 26% based on trend plus contractual increases. And depreciation is up 6% based on assets placed in service. Page 60, water services. A 12% increase in personnel costs are the result of the wage increases and changes in benefit elections. Overall, operations increased $106,000, or 12%. Professional fees increased by $50,000 to contract out smoke testing of the lines. And depreciation is up 6%, or almost $46,000, based on assets placed in service. Page 61 has capital outlay. Capital outlay is up by 79,000. This year's major projects include headworks improvements for 750,000 and B&R recycle pumps and mixers for 115,000. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Christine, I have just a couple. And I've just noticed this in each department, and this is a minimal amount of money, but the employee fitness program for this year is, in each that I've seen, says 0. Are we doing away with our fitness program, or are we putting it somewhere else?
We are not doing away with the program. I believe this is based on actual historical usage, but I will ask Steve that.
And it's not just as his department, it's in the other departments as well.
On wastewater, I believe, particularly plant, it should have gone up a little bit.
The employee fitness program was $60 last year. I mean, like I'm saying, it's a minimal amount. And this year it's 0. I always thought it was JBU, but I might be, it's not.
That's
What
one
is
of
the,
them.
what is the employee fitness program? Is it money that goes to the Walton Lifetime Health Complex? I don't know.
That's actually accounted for somewhere else. This is actually reimbursement for gyms, gym memberships. So they, employees have the option to do the Walton Family Health Complex, or they can go to Planet Fitness if they want, and they get the same amount of reimbursement as the city would put towards the Walton Family Health Fund.
So this amount of money for a fitness program, is it calculated or categorized somewhere else?
And which page was that one on that you were
This is on
looking at?
58.
Yeah, it's going away on page.
Yeah,
58.
it's gone away in several different departments.
Yeah, I think that he budgeted that based on actual usage.
Okay. And then my other question is about the chemicals. It's going down, but I always thought chemicals were going up.
I think we estimated high last year, and our chemicals were significantly higher so far this year. But I believe, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, that we didn't see them continuing to increase. So we wanted to do it based on trend.
And we normally buy ahead, is that right, or not?
I don't know that we buy ahead, but we do bid everything out, so you get that bid at the end of the year, so that we
Okay.
know how much we're gonna pay. Is that correct?
Okay, thank you.
In the water plant, as an example, since water and wastewater both use chemicals, the water plant, with the upgrade, they don't have to use as much.
I wondered if that might account for it. We were hoping that that might be part of the outcome.
Picked up the depreciation, but it lowered our operating expenses.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question. Christina, since we're talking about the employee fitness program, what is the one below it, employee screening? Is that health screening?
No, actually, we have to screen our employees and get them drug tested before we start, so
Okay,
it's
yep. Well, then,
typically based on turnover.
like on some of the departments, it is really low on the employee fitness program, but like jumping back to administration, in '21, it was $1,400, and this last year jumped almost 4 times to $4,600. Why would it be such a big jump?
Which one are you looking
I
at?
went back to administration
Administration.
just to, since you said it's in every department, I just went back to see an example of another department. Because some of these ones we'd been looking at were kind of small, so I just thought, but then I was surprised that one would jump so high from 21 to 22.
And I believe that is where the Walton family portion is coded. HR codes that, so I believe that's where they code that.
Think their memberships went up or something, or I have no clue. I don't know what they're.
Christine, isn't that part of the points program that you do for the, so it makes sense that it would be in HR,
Yes,
because that's the only way they can monitor it.
right.
Okay.
Because like the police department only went up from 5,100 to 6,500.
And again, that's not every membership. That's only the memberships that are not at the Walton family.
Oh, it's only the
Oh,
ones
it's
that
in
are
addition
not.
to.
Oh, okay.
So like the fire department has 6,000 for fitness program
Well, the budgeted is,
is budgeted,
yeah, last year was 4,600.
which I get that.
So they have the choice of going to the Walton Lifetime, but if they'd rather not,
Correct.
they can go like to Planet Fitness and the city pays for the membership.
Just a portion.
Oh, just a portion of it?
Just the same amount of money that we put towards the Walton Family Health.
Okay.
Tina? Hey, so on 59 landfill fees, that's an increase. So are we tracking what's happening with Tawnytown, and are we concerned that that could really get significant in the near future? Shut down and expand. They're fighting over the expansion, and I just don't. I know we're limited on landfills. When the regional study was done, that is the only area cost effective for a city of any size. And I'm just, I'm looking out, 5-10 years from now, if Tawnytown, I don't know how they're gonna do it and pull that card, because I thought they had a long-term agreement, but just tracking it on, news and through some of the sites in Tawnytown, I just, I look at that jump now, and it's a realistic cost of $200,000 within a short period of time.
There's a CPI increase built into that, so we've tried to look at where we are on trend and then add in CPI, which at this point is pretty significant.
Right.
Dina, you had mentioned a minute ago on the capital outlay for wastewater, headworks improvement, what is that? It's 750,000, what is, Steve, can you tell us? Yeah,
Yes.
you're ready, chomping at the bit for somebody to ask that.
A headworks at a wastewater plant is the area where the wastewater is coming in from the city. And so the wastewater gets screened, and then heavy material like sand and grit, that type of thing, will settle out. So we're needing to upgrade our screens in our headworks, because they are about 13 years old now, and the way it operates, it's a stair step type thing, and every time the thing moves up one step, it leaves an opening at the floor, and we get rags and all kinds of debris that comes in, to the point where staff has to rake a manual screen twice a day, and it fills up a wheelbarrow.
I thought we'd seen pictures of that at one point. Did we already do part of this at one
Well,
other time? Or?
Yeah, they had to repair the compactor, because
Okay.
the rags and debris will come into an auger, and it'll squeeze it and compact it, and that much less to have to haul.
I knew
away.
we'd seen something that had a chain on it, and it was, like you said, a stair-step thing. And so we'd seen some pictures at one time, I knew. I just didn't know if this was something that had not been done before and was now catching up or whatever.
It's just the equipment starting to the point where it's needing replaced,
Well, if
and
it's 13 years old, yeah, I can understand that.
and
yeah.
that thing runs pretty constant.
As we were talking a moment ago, we were talking about the employee fitness and the employee screening and how low it is on some, like on the wastewater, the screening's $480. And luckily, like on the admin, it's $35. Well, it's $84, drug screening, that's not very much, that's good. Police department, you gotta keep up with that, and that's only $4,500, but when you go to fire, it's like $30,000 for screening, employee screening, and I was like, wow, if it's higher, does that mean we have a lot of turnover, or?
So fire is the exception, and they do an annual physical screening as well in that
Okay.
for everybody.
Okay, it's not just a new employee, it's, okay.
That does get charged there for everybody else, but for them it also
Yeah.
includes an
I
annual
wondered
screening.
if some departments were higher, I wonder if that meant more people, turnover, because you have to do more screening, so. But that one was that's why you say it was the exception, it was a pretty big number, so I had to ask. Okay, thank you.
There's 5 minutes left. Do we want to continue on through solid waste?
I'd like to get through solid waste and then we'll
Sure.
call it brief there.
So solid waste revenue begins on page 62. Revenue is expected to increase about 10% or 536,000. Utility sales are based on trend and growth, and sales are expected to increase 130,000. Transfer station fees are up by 170,000 over prior year based on trend. Recycling fees are also expected to increase by 65,000. Expenses begin on page 63. The personnel increase of 13% is due to the proposed raises and the addition of 1 full-time position. Operations increased by 373,000. Administrative department charges increased 19,000. Property insurance increased by almost 26,000. Vehicle operation increased by 95,000 based on trend and increased fuel prices. Landfill fees will increase 13% or 134,000 based on the contract and current trends. Depreciation will increase by almost 65,000 and transfers will increase by 32,000. Capital begins on page 64. Capital outlay will decrease 338,000. Current year capital includes a semi-truck for hauling to the landfill and replacing a rear load truck. On page 65,
Christine,
yes.
I have a question. On the recycle truck, did we purchase any recycle trucks lately? Because I know ours is broke down a lot.
We have one budgeted for this year and we can't get a chassis.
Oh, okay.
Can't get a what, Steve?
Chassis?
Oh.
Manufacturer makes the box, but they can't get a chassis from any vendor, which is sad. We even looked at used ones, but they're thinking the same thing that I was, which is can't get a new one, we'll find a used one. So can't get that either.
Can't get them anywhere. Because I noticed ours is broke down a lot.
Yeah, and that's one that we intended to replace, but
When did we purchase it originally?
I would be guessing, but I'm thinking 2011. And they were both about the same time. No, I take that back. We have one that's relatively new, and then the other one was older. We were staggering the replacement like we were trying to do now.
The new one's not breaking down, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Steve, the side load trash truck that was for this year's budget, is that for one truck?
That's for one truck.
Awesome.
Running around town now.
It does look like the landfill fees are, I mean, that's $100,000 more. Is that typical?
Well, we've got CPI that we're gonna be dealing with, and like Christina was saying, that number is higher than what it normally is. And I've got contract negotiation with Waste Management next year for another 5-year contract. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, the previous year it was like 30,000, and this year it's 130,000. And we used, was Brad saying Tawnytown? Is that right?
Yeah.
What is there another one close by? I remember years ago they used to talk about a Cherokee Nation one.
Yeah, there's a Cherokee Nation one, and I want to say, and don't quote me, but it's somewhere around Tahlequah or
Yeah.
thereabout.
I
It's a
think
lot
at
further
one time
drive.
we used it, but I don't know if it was a good relationship, or, I mean, a good choice or something.
Yeah, back then, not too environmentally friendly.
Oh, yeah, it was quite a long time ago.
So finally, on page 65, there is one additional driver reflected in the schedule. So are there any other questions related to this?
No other questions from the board. Philip, any comments?
Sir.
All right, thank you, Christina and Steve. We are adjourned for this budget meeting.
Call to order this regular meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for November 1st, 2022. Roll call.
Sappington. Here. Smiley.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
At this time, if you all will please stand with me as Director Burns leads us in a word of prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, we're grateful for fall in the Ozarks. We are eternally grateful for freedom and for those that provide it by putting self and service first. And it's your name we pray, amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that so we don't have an interruption during the meeting. I'd like to say welcome to everyone that is here tonight. It's always good to see a lot of people attending our meetings. We appreciate that. So we will go into our public input time. And at this time, if there is anyone that would like to address the board concerning any item that is not on our regular agenda you can come to the podium. Please give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes from the time you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, City Board. I'm Arthur Holbert, 20705 Highway 16, Siloam Springs. I'm also the President and CEO of the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce.
Arthur, I'm sorry, could you give us your address, please?
Yeah, 20705 Highway 16, Siloam Springs, Arkansas.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do apologize I didn't make the last board meeting. Had a laceration of my eye that everyone can see. If anyone's ever had eye problems, you'll know that that is very painful and affects your ability to concentrate and communicate. The chamber team and I did listen to the last city board meetings online, attempted to write down all the questions and comments, because there were a lot of them regarding the chamber budget and questions and comments that the directors had. Tonight I'd like to thank you all for those comments and questions and respond as requested as briefly and thoroughly as possible. The biggest question is, and I'm glad we have such an audience here with our friends here, many of which I know. Biggest question is, what does the chamber do? And what do the citizens of Siloam Springs get for the $30,000 per year economic development services agreement between the city and the chamber? During the last city board meeting, I appreciated the reminders from the city administrator, Philip Patterson, and Director Rissler that the chamber is not paid by the hour, but rather paid for a flat rate for 14 categories he read from the contract. Many of the categories and deliverables involve being a liaison for the city, and many of those deliverables involved traveling to the 49 corridor for the ADC, Northwest Council, Northwest Economic Development District, and trade shows, Little Rock, Harrison, Jonesboro, etc. I also appreciate the comments from Director Allen, that our quarterly reports are not just contract stuff, but basically a list of all the things done or attended, and not necessarily all the chamber does for economic development. To that point, much of what the chamber does, especially the RFIs and pending business coming into town, is confidential. Potential business coming into town is confidential and would be detrimental if released to the public early, as is not included in quarterly reports. Most of the detail is left out of these quarterly reports, so it's understandable to have questions. Some details are left out on purpose for confidentiality, as some due to volume of time and space it would take. Some people do not want it broadcast publicly that their business was helped or that business is struggling. I can share with you that the chamber has helped individuals living in Siloam Springs receive well over $3 million, closer to $4 million, in PPP, employee retention tax credits, research and development grants in the last 18 months. We've also helped 36 businesses get started. In the last board meeting, several questions about why the chamber did not have the Chamber Challenge or golf course, did not have the Chamber Challenge golf tournament at the Siloam Springs Golf Course locally in town. Any comments suggesting that the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce did not want to or try vigorously to have the golf tournament locally again like it has the last 2 years in Siloam would be completely not accurate. The Chamber planned to, with a date chosen and golfers contacted, but the greens for the Siloam Golf Course was burned up and the people would have had to put on dirt. The only thing worse than the picture of the eye that I've shown you guys is the picture of the greens that were taken on August 24th, 2022, 2 weeks before the Siloam Springs Chamber was supposed to have the golf tournament in Siloam. Mike Seegert, Kurt Pritus, and team met for weeks discussing ways to make it work, along with Curtis Smith, the golf board. The Chamber proposed delaying the Chamber Challenge golf course and having the new management company, Brian Menace, run it maybe in, say, November. Brian Menace told us no, that it would take 5 months, at least 5 months or springtime before the tournament would be ready, for the golf course to be ready for a tournament. So basically, the Chamber had the golf tournament at the Creeks a few weeks later. Since then, the Chamber has taken the lead with trying to save the golf course. That was not discussed in the last city board meeting. We've had about 5 meetings, 2 of which we had lunch provided by the Siloam Springs Chamber. Phillips attended, along with school superintendents, business leaders, bankers, the Cherokee Nation leadership, hospital CAO, meetings with business leaders and sponsorships. The Chamber was asked to take the lead. We also had meetings with Curtis Smith and also Brian Menace. I'm happy to report, as of yesterday at 2 p.m., we've raised $67,000, including $15,000 from the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce, but not counting the city's $30,000 to help save the golf course. We're only $23,000 away from private funds for getting the donations that we need. I also understand and appreciate the question from one of the directors who said, why so much time in the quarterly report is spent outside of Siloam Springs? That's a fantastic question. As Philip stated when he read the Chamber contract during the last city board meeting, much of the Chamber's fulfillment of the economic development contract with the city represents Siloam Springs out of town. The Chamber does not go to Springdale to fundraise, but rather represents Siloam Springs and its interests from economic development, tourism, quality of life, fulfillment, economic development for the city with the Northwest Council. Last week we met with a delegation from China, the top leadership from Walmart. Is it up?
One more minute, please.
Okay, thank you. We met with Walmart, Tyson, J.B. Hunt. We speak at Leadership Fayetteville, Leadership Springdale, Leadership Bentonville, speak interstate and intercity meetings, one of which Philip spoke at for Tulsa. I did too. I spoke at another one for Missouri. During the meeting, we talked about our community's positivity, Christian heritage, great downtown, JBU, local small businesses, Simmons, Dayspring, Cobb, the Woka Kayak Park. And we tell them that Siloam Springs is a great place to live, raise a family, work, and play. I've also been asked by Mark Simmons to help facilitate the Western Benton County Council. He something asked me to do about 3 years ago. That's what much of that time is for out of town. I'm currently the chairman of the federal and state grants and business grants to help fund the 59 corridor, which is Siloam Springs, Decatur, Gentry, Gravette. Basically, I help facilitate and set up a meeting of mayors throughout the 59 corridor, superintendents, chambers, legislator, judge, and Northwest County, etc. Basically, as the chairman of that, we're trying to raise funds for education, childcare, economic development, and infrastructure. I really appreciate the question from the city director regarding reports. I see a list of actions or tasks in these reports, but what are the results of those actions? That's a great question.
Arthur.
Am I done?
Sorry.
Okay. So I guess I'll do my 3 minutes another day. Thank you very much. I would like to say that the questions were asked publicly, so I would like to be able to answer them publicly.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
is there not a way to allow more time? The golf course got 45 minutes, and I think Arthur's here to answer and defend a lot of misinformation that came up at the last meeting.
And you are right, they did have more time. Of course, they were here for a presentation that was on our agenda. However, if the directors would like to hear the rest of Arthur's comments, you may do so. I will leave that to you.
Do you have a lot more to say, Arthur?
Probably about 3 more minutes, and I can do it at the end of the meeting if that would be more appropriate after people's presentation.
Brad.
Questions are not misinformation, they're simply questions. And the chamber should have a representative here if he's not able to attend. But I think the real questions, Arthur, were based on the chart, and we just had questions about billing hours. We know everything you do because that's your job. Everything you just stated is your job, and I respect that. We just had questions about billing. That's it. Nothing else.
I have every question that the directors asked and an answer ready to prepare. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Lisa?
Director Burns, did you not request that Philip Patterson get a hold of the chamber and get this information presented? I watched the last meeting and I recall that happening.
You bet. I could get that in the email. I could get that whatever. And actually, I'm happily if the next quarterly report chamber shows up. There's no
Arthur, would you ask for that
nothing emotional
information?
here.
Have you been asked for that information?
No.
So the only time he could present it is now.
I've not been asked by anybody. Thank you. I'll sit down. Unless the directors decide otherwise.
Directors?
I'm fine giving him the rest of the
I am
time to
too.
talk.
Then I would say if you say you have 3 more minutes, then we'll have 3 more minutes. Arthur?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Board. I really appreciate the question and one the directors had regarding not just the list of actions, but the results of those actions. Sometimes those results are delayed and the story is still being written. Last month we did a roundtable. We had Northwest Council Joe Rollins, Director of Workforce Development, present. We invited HR leadership from around the city as well as HR leadership from the city. Joe basically identified that he has free CDL licenses. Misty with the city of Silent Springs said that is awesome because that's the cheapest she's been able to get us $1,500. So Misty and Joe connected after the meeting, the story still being written, how much money the meeting will save the city of Silent Springs. Also, national news. Tyson recently announced they're closing their Chicago-based offices and many of those employees are relocated to Northwest Arkansas. The chamber created QR codes for all the Tyson employees relocating to Northwest Arkansas, directing to the Siloam page. Furthermore, immediate tangible results include $1,700 for tourism, $1,000 that the chamber gave, $1,000 for the handicap kayak lunch ramp. The chamber manages Discover Siloam. The chamber's doing the RFIs for the city, help create the content and distribute community guides. Most empty buildings are now filled. We manage the makerspace operational expenses. We help fund fundraisers for nonprofits, most recently for Ability Tree. Also, this last year, we walked to 150 businesses and the donations for the Manna Center, Adopters for Schools, and the chamber helped connect police departments with business sponsorships for bleed kits. Chamber paid for signs for picket time on 59. The chamber also did what the city asked for, doing surveys for broadband internet, taxation for roads and police, mask, analytics for a number of employees for business, help discussions with incentives to attract retail. In inclement weather, I've received phone calls late on Friday nights, on the weekends to help deal with issues with potential a blackout a couple of years ago. We've helped with Hispanic outreach. I'm not going to go into the details there, not to mention the Dogwood Festival with 50,000 employees. I understand specifically to Director Burns' question of why would the director put on the report meeting at Woka Park with the mayor. That answer is Mike Brown, the project administrator for the Walton Enterprises, who oversees the Woka Water Park, asked me specifically on more than one to attend the park with the mayor and discuss some things. He specifically asked for no pictures. Among things, he asked for my input and assistance with facilitating trails connecting Silent Springs to Woka and Woka to Arkansas 59. That was a tourism economic business development meeting on behalf of the city at the request of Mike Brown, the project administrator for Walton Enterprises. There's also a question of why masks would be mentioned. While at CPG, the manager at CPG said that they could not find masks. The chamber paid for 2,000 masks. We distributed them. Just another example, as Director Allen said, of things that the chamber does for our community. There was a question from a director about why city employee, why would you put in the quarterly report a city employee family appreciation cookout facilitated by Director Rissler, where gifts and prizes from local businesses and a local swim party at the city pool. The chamber was asked to and happily cooked at the event and emceed the event. The chamber would be happy to cook and MC or assist any director for any city appreciation meeting. There were drawings given. Most of those went to the fire department and police department. I understand there was also a question from a director about why events like Whataburger would be on the quarterly report. Basically, I was specifically asked by the leadership of Whataburger to speak at the groundbreaking with the mayor, which I did, It was a bigger deal than most of our ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings, symbolizing the growth and economic vitality of Silent Springs. It was also attended as an unusual event by our city administrator and 50 other people. The Chamber has been a part of the early economic development discussions with Whataburger and is continuing that with trying to help identify their management team. There's a comment from a city director about who asked about an invitation to speak at a candidate forum by the Chamber. That was specifically asked for. When I started here in 2020, the city administrator asked if I was going to do candidate forums, and I saw that we had historically done them, so I've done them since. Last week's candidate forum, every director had a chance to be there. Many of them were. There was 36 people present in person, and we had 450 people reach through Facebook so far. The July's candidate forum had 40 people present, 1,388 people reach Facebook. Just wanted the citizens to have a chance to hear their candidate, their officials, the people elected and pending. 3 minutes is up. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday was Halloween.
Yes.
What did the chamber do for the downtown trick or treat?
That's a great question. I actually forgot to mention that. Basically, the Chamber of Commerce, Heather Lanker and Luke basically helped facilitate getting the candy. But what the Chamber was the location for the drop-off for the candy with McKee Foods and other local businesses. And the Chamber was open yesterday, and we helped distribute the candy to the businesses so downtown would have candy.
That is a long-standing tradition that when I owned an office downtown, I loved giving candy to the kids. It was a 2-hour event that the kids look forward to. It's a big deal to the kids to have their costumes. And 5 days before Halloween, the Main Street Siloam Springs is in charge of that, and they didn't have anything in an online presence. And I appreciate you guys picking up the slack and doing it, because you don't get credit for it. There's nothing on anything online. The city was notifying it on the city's webpage and or Facebook page, and I appreciate that. But
thank you. We do a lot of things we don't.
What you guys did to help that out.
Thank you, Director. And there's a lot of things we don't get credit for, but we had pictures of bags of candy and boxes of candy that were distributed throughout the community.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I appreciate the chamber.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate everything that
Thank
you
you, Director.
do. In order for the city to disperse funds to you, legally we have to have a contract that specifies what the outcome is of the money that we're spending.
Absolutely.
And some of that, in my understanding, does not fit within the realm of what we have listed as what we expect from the chamber. Not that we aren't appreciative of what the chamber does, but it's outside that scope, and I think it is more of what a chamber normally does. So I'm not sure if citizens understand that, but we can only disperse the money if we have a contract with expectations, and those have to be specific.
Right.
I believe I'm correct. I hope I'm not overstepping.
Thank you, Director. There are 14 deliverables, and that's what we try to address.
Right, and some of those I think go outside of that. I think it is, not that I'm saying that I don't appreciate what the chamber does, especially when what happened yesterday, and you see all these pictures on Facebook of all these happy children. But there's only certain things that we can be responsible for, and that is, I think, what we're not questioning, but that's what we're stating.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to address the board on anything that is on our consent agenda? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Sure.
The presentation.
Hang on, Tyler. Absolutely. So if you'll hold that thought. Chief, we are going to rearrange this a little bit and ask for you to give your presentation for the Bridging the Gap Award.
Board, Alan Gilbert, Chief of Police, Siloam Springs. Thank you for letting us present tonight. On October 21st, Detective Ron Coble was presented with Bridging the Gap Award from the Northwest Arkansas Adopt a Cop program. Detective Coble, along with members of the FBI, Arkansas Human Trafficking Task Force, received the award for their dedication and work, which focuses on protecting minors from human trafficking and sex crimes. Detective Coble has been an active member with the task force since March of 2022 and a member of the Arkansas Internet Crimes Against Children since 2019. Just in 2022, Detective Coble has conducted 24 investigations with one case containing 40 victims of sexual extortion, rape, kidnapping, and child pornography. Detective Coble has more than 18 years of law enforcement experience. I cannot be any prouder of the work he has done and continues to do to make our city a safer place to live and work. Please help me congratulate Detective Ron Coble, not only for the work he's done for Siloam Springs, but also for the impact he has made in the great state of Arkansas.
Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. He's accompanied by his wife, Misty.
Absolutely.
I think she's the one that allows us to do all the work.
I'm sure that's true, right?
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to say? Your wife has given you the floor.
I'm staying out of that one.
Mayor,
Yes.
the Siloam Springs Republican women had you speak, am I right? I mean, you and the other one that does this job, and it was phenomenal, the information that we received, and to know what all he's been through and seen and done. It's phenomenal to know that someone has the fortitude to be able to do this job, and I appreciate him and everything that he's done to help people, because it sounds very scary and very tough, and I got to hand it to you. So thank you for the job you do, sir.
We appreciate you. We hope you're here for many years with the city of Siloam Springs. Perfect. Thank you. Now, Mr. Carroll, I believe that you wanted to address something that is on our consent agenda.
Is on the consent agenda?
It is on the consent agenda.
Just making
Give us
sure.
your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Tyler Carroll, 102 South Carl, right here in Siloam Springs. I'm going to read an email that I sent to the board. I heard back from some people, but I'll read it out loud in case people weren't able to get to it. I'm here today to express my support for the cooperative agreement between the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company and the Northwest Arkansas Trailblazers. I believe that this would be a fantastic partnership with an organization who does excellent quality of work and in the exact way they say they will do it. This is a great way to utilize a land resource that is essentially non-utilized and only adds to the incredible quality of life right here in Siloam Springs. This will also add a great place for our local youth mountain biking team, NICA team. A bunch of them are here tonight, which is pretty cool. Good kids. I get to spend a lot of time with them. They have over 75 locals just in Siloam Springs participating, over 900 kids across the state. It's a pretty phenomenal program. They practice their skills and provide more opportunities for them through the Teen Trail Corps NICA program to get their volunteer hours by keeping trails clean and shaped up in our area. They actually lead the state mountain biking league, not just with their skills on the bike. Some of them are pretty fast, but also in their volunteer time off the bike. And that is highly commendable. It actually counts towards their championship series points as much as their race does. So these kids are committed to taking care of local trails, and we need more for them to ride. Multi-use trails, which multi-use for hikers, bikers, runners, all kinds of people, are a great way to keep our community active and healthy. This sounds like a win-win-win to me all the way around. Super supportive of it. We have a real opportunity here in Siloam Springs. A lot of people, when I travel out west, they say, oh, we've heard about the trails in Northwest Arkansas, which means they're driving through here. We have an opportunity in Siloam Springs to potentially be a gateway to Oz, if you will. I think that's would be a beautiful thing to adopt if someone felt so inclined. You'll see on my shirt it says the Land of Oz. This is actually my Bike Scout shirt, not Boy Scout shirt, because I'm really into bikes, if you can't tell. But, you know, sometimes I see a lot of smiles up here. Sometimes I see a lot of frowns up here. Best way to put the smile on that face is get on a bike. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tyler. And, yes, go ahead. No, go ahead. Come on. Do you have something you'd like to say? Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Matt Timbo, 16260 Clark Station Road, Siloam. I'm not going to say a whole lot because Tyler covered most of it, but basically just want to be here to say that we support this partnership agreement that's on the consent agenda for the Northwest Arkansas Trailblazers and the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm here with a group of our NICA athletes, just a few of the many that are on the team that have put in countless hours, not just riding the trails here, but almost 700 hours since January 1st that these kids and coaches have put into cleaning up the trails, maintaining trails, getting trees off of the trails, making sure that they're rideable and walkable and runnable for everybody. We take care of, along with OORC, we help out with the trails at JBU, at City Lake, at Lake Weddington, and we want to express that we will help take care of new trails if you guys approve this out at WOCA. So we want to help with that. We are the defending state champions for the state of Arkansas, Siloam Springs. Did you guys know that?
Did not.
That's pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
Both in high school and in middle school. We would love to have more trails out here to work on and to practice on and to get better at. So we ask you to approve this and we commit to volunteering. Personally, I lost 35 pounds getting on a mountain bike because I needed to do that. I gained like 10 of it back. So, but it's really great for people, for their mental health. It's great for your physical health. Getting on a trail in the woods, especially this time of year when it's beautiful out with the fall leaves, making like a carpet on the trail. It's really fun. It's good for your mind. And if you've ever skied or snowboarded, it's the closest thing in the woods in Arkansas that you can get to doing that. And at the same time, you're not going that fast. And when you're climbing a hill, you're getting an intense cardio workout without putting in like super high speed that you have to get on the road and stuff. So we support the trails. We want to say that we're committed to that as a team. And there might be, is anybody else? There's a few boys that might want to say something. I don't know.
I love to.
Can my son, this is my son Corbin.
Yes,
He's a
give us-
9th grader in Siloam Springs, born and raised here.
Can you give us your name, Corbin?
Corbin Timbo.
Thank you.
So yeah, I love to bike. I love to ride all the trails around here. And I would just love to be able to have more trails around here that I can ride that aren't like super far away from our house.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We
Thank you,
appreciate
Tim.
it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And because these young people apparently are very phenomenal and committed to what they're doing, and state champions, is that what you said? Then I would like for them to stand and let us all recognize them with a hand. Thank you all for your service to this community. We appreciate it.
And good luck.
Yeah, and good luck. I would not survive. So with that, is there anyone else that would like to speak to the board? If not, then we will move on to our consent agenda. A, workshop minutes, October 18th, 2022. B, regular meeting minutes, October 18th, 2022. C, Appointment, City of Siloam Springs, Arkansas, Public Education Facilities Board, John Brown University, Carla Wasson. Item D, Cooperation Agreement, Siloam Springs Water Resource Company and NWA Trailblazers, Mountain Biking Trails. Item E, dedication of utility easements, 2179 Bill Young Road. Item F, dedication of utility easements and right-of-way, 23229 and 23345 Lawless Road. Item G, contract, healthcare reinsurance, International Assurance of Tennessee, $263,079.48. That is our consent agenda. Directors, is there any item that you would like to have pulled for further discussion? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I
Mindy.
pull D just for a comment?
D? Yes, ma'am, you may.
Did you say D?
D is in dog, yeah, just for a comment.
I had a comment too, or a question.
Anyone else?
D is in Delta.
So, do I have a motion then to approve our consent agenda with item D removed?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item D, Mindy.
I wasn't going to pull this because I didn't know whether you all would have a chance to speak or not. But since you had a chance to speak, the reason I'm pulling it now is just to thank you for taking that time to speak, and also just to thank you for all of the work that you have done on the trails. I'm not a mountain biker myself, but I do love hiking, and I've hiked the trails that you all have maintained. I even like hiking the trails when you all are out there riding the trails because you get the spiders down. You take down the spider webs before I get a chance to get to them. But I've seen you out there working. I've seen you out there riding. I appreciate what you do, and I thank you for coming and sharing with us just a little bit more information. Congratulations on your championship. Let's keep that title of first place in the state. Again, just thank you. I know it's not easy to get up and speak in front of all of us up here, but you did, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Director Allen?
Yes, ma'am. I had a question. Is this costing the city anything? I didn't think so, but
No.
I thought that, but I just wanted to confirm.
The only cost that would be to the city is staff will have some time looking at the plans and working with the contractors to verify the locations and going through that process. But as far as out-of-pocket expense, no.
The trail is going on unused city property, and I think it is a good endeavor, is what I'm trying to say. Is that right, Mr. Patterson?
I don't classify it as being unused city property because it's the location of the water line, but the surface is unused, yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
I want to be clear, we do use it, yes, but the surface is not used.
It's not something that we plan to do something else with
No, sir.
right now,
No,
and
sir.
it's not commercially viable to sell it or something. Is the current phase going to be putting a 10-foot sidewalk or side path in the city limits? At one time, there was talk of down Carl Street.
So, this is a separate project, but the previously this board approved a resolution agreeing to accept the dedication of a 10-foot side path or trail that will run from roughly the water treatment plant there on Rains Road all the way to Woka Kayak Park, and the city agreed to accept that all the way to the state line. Future expansions of that trail may bring it further and closer to the central part of the city, but there's no immediate plans to do that today.
That was all I needed to know. We got the map, and where it's going looks fantastic. And it's very impressive, the nature that will be able to be viewed and ridden. And I'm impressed that these young people would come tonight and show their support, because that takes some guts to be here, and I appreciate it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have one more comment.
Sure.
And that is, when I have been riding, or when I've been walking on the trail before, especially the one by JBU, and you all have been out on the trail riding, you guys have been the most considerate, polite young people. I'm the one that's in your way. I try to get out of the way, and you all are just so polite as you go by. And I just really appreciate that, and I think that needs to be said. So keep it up.
Mayor, I did have one other question about the agreement, the cooperative agreement. It states the administrator acting as trustee for the water resource company. I didn't know who wrote it. If maybe isn't that supposed to be the mayor? I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought the water resource company was only city board members, and that's why I asked if this was a mistake. That's all.
No, I believe that the Water Resource Company, I am the trustee to that.
Oh, okay.
The old prior company, it's only the board.
Okay. There's a lot of stuff that happened before I got back on. So just like the thing you were referencing a moment ago about the dedication was before I got here. So I'm still learning. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a mistake was all. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam
Mayor.
Mayor.
Marla, and then Reed.
I just want to thank y'all for being here, and for the parents for getting the kids away from the electronics and out in nature. And lived here all my life, used to ride my bike around town, and if I'd have had the trails to go on, it would have been awesome. So I just want to encourage each of you to enjoy the flora and the fauna that's out there, and also make it a learning experience, and go kick some and win us another championship, okay?
Fires.
Reed.
I appreciate your presence here this evening. And what I most appreciate is your commitment to perpetuate this, the trails, to keep them functioning, because what that's going to do is it's going to hand it off over to the chamber, where they're going to be able to have better things to say for economic development, to develop this community. So I see a lot of tie-in here, where this is definitely a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Carol.
Excuse me. I just want to say how much I do appreciate this. My daughter does ride bikes. I'm a little bit familiar with biking. I don't. I wish I could or did. But I do appreciate this agreement. I appreciate the young people coming out. As Director Hunt said, I know sometimes it's difficult to get up and speak before us. I hope we're not intimidating. But thank you very much for your efforts, what you've contributed to the community, and what you contribute to the trails. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve item D for the cooperation agreement with the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company and Northwest Arkansas Trailblazers?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you all once again. Next is our ordinances. Ordinance 22-25, first reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from A1 to C1A 409 North Country Club Road. And it's your turn, girl.
It's my turn. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the first reading for a rezoning request to rezone 4.45 acres located at 409 North Country Club Road.
Need you to give your name and your position with the city, please.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Megan Thomas, Planner 1.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay. This is the first reading for a rezoning request to rezone 4.45 acres located at 409 North Country Club Road. The request is to rezone the property from A1 agriculture to C1A light commercial. Looking at the general area map on your screens, you can see that the neighboring properties are generally either residential or commercial recreational uses in nature. This is the site plan for the property. There is an existing residential house located here in the southwest corner of the site. The future land use map is calling for mixed use, as you can see here. This is the 2040 comprehensive plan regarding mixed use centers. The intended uses for this future land use category range from multifamily living to small office spaces. As you can see, this area is intended to serve as a transitional area between residential and more intensive commercial uses. Therefore, the proposed C1A zoning is appropriate for what the intended land use is for the property. This is the overall site view of the property. It sits just on the corner of East Tahlequah and North Country Club Road. You can see this is the existing house on the property. And this is the overall site view of the property, just so you guys can see what the surrounding uses are. We have industrial here to the west. We have some residentials here to the south and vacant land to the east and to the north. Staff is recommending approval of this request with no needed conditions. Staff is by if you have any questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to Ordinance 22-25? If there is not, directors? If not, do I have a motion to place Ordinance 22-25 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is Ordinance 22 Oh, yes, Philip,
May
would
I
you
do
like
my
to
thing?
read?
Thank
Yes, you may.
Ordinance number 22-25, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from A1 to C1A, property located at 409 North Country Club Road.
Thank you, sir. Now we move to Ordinance 22-26, first reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to C2, the 800 block of Brashear's Road. Megan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the first reading for a rezoning request located at the 1800 block of Brashear's Road. The request is to rezone 5.69 acres from R2 residential medium to C2 roadway commercial. This property was previously rezoned to R2 in May of this year. However, the applicant now wishes to rezone the frontage to commercial. The future land use map is calling for this property to be local commercial. Therefore, the proposed C2 zoning is appropriate for what the intended land use for the property is. This is a site plan for the property. They're requesting to rezone the 3 lots that are indicated on your screen. These lots over here are zone C2 and I1. And this is the overall site view of the property. The property is currently vacant, and you can see that we have Endora Park just here to the north of the property. Staff is recommending approval of this request with no needed conditions, and staff is by if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to Ordinance 22-26? Okay, Sue Ellen, if you give us your name and address, please.
Sue Ellen Coleman, 13995 Inverness Lane.
Thank you.
I am owner of the property with another.
That mic down. Thank you.
I'm half ownership of this property. It was C1 before, and then we changed it because we had an offer for a housing development due to the non-able to provide electricity. We are asking to go back to the C1. And I would request that we do 2 and 3 reading also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Oh, I'm requesting C2.
Okay. So we're all on the same page, right? There you go. Anyone else? If not, directors. Comments or questions? There being none, I would ask for a motion to place Ordinance 22-26 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading title only, and ask if there is a motion for the second and third reading also.
So moved, and I will add the second and third.
Second.
We have a motion and second for the first, second, and third readings. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
excuse me, Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip.
Ordinance number 22-26, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from R2 to C2, property located in the 1800 block of Brashear's Road.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 22-26?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance 22-26 is adopted. Thank you, Sue Ellen. Next is ordinance 22-27. This will be the first and only reading to waive competitive bidding for health insurance, network, and admin, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Misty, you have the floor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Board. Misty McLaughlin, HR Manager. Tonight, staff is recommending that we stay with the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance. Employees are happy, very, very few complaints, and Blue Cross Blue Shield has excellent customer service. So tonight, staff is recommending that we stay with the Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 22-27? If not, directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. Blue Cross Blue Shield covers 48% of the nation's coverage. That's more than any other insurance. So no matter where their employees go in the nation, they're covered. And so, thank you for putting that together, Misty.
Absolutely. I contest to that. Blue Cross Blue Shield is an excellent insurance company. So, thank you, Misty. Anyone else? Do I have a motion to approve to place ordinance 22-27 on its first and only reading, suspending the rules and reading title only?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 22-27, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield and the city waiving the requirement of competitive bidding.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 22-27?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved. Thank you, Misty. Next is resolutions. Resolution 62-22, Significant Development Permit, Lot 2 of the Siloam Warehouse Edition for Jiffy Trip. Megan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a significant development permit request to construct a 6,536 square foot gas station with a drive-through service. This project is located on the 700 block of Highway 412 West, as you can see on your screen from the general area map. On the screen is a site plan for the proposed gas station. As you can see, we have the 6,536 square foot building here, and we have a canopy for fueling located here. This project will be utilizing all existing drives and is not proposing any new driveways. Additionally, they are proposing to construct a sidewalk along South Elm Street here that will connect to the existing sidewalk on Highway 412. The dumpster will be located here in the southeast corner of the site and will be screened. As a condition of approval, the applicant will be required to file drainage easements via separate instrument. This property is Lot 2 of the Siloam Warehouse Edition that was previously approved this year. This is an image of that approved final plat. And this is the landscape plan for the project. There will be trees surrounding all sides of the site. Additionally, they will be providing a 10-foot landscape buffer on the interior of their site here, as well as on the exterior of the property boundaries here and here. And this is the overall site view of the property. The existing trees on the property will be removed for the construction of this. You can see that they are utilizing this existing drive here. Staff is recommending approval of this request with 2 needed conditions. Condition number 1 is the applicant must file drainage easements via separate instrument as directed by the city engineer prior to building permit issuance. Condition number 2 is the applicant must remove the paving on Lot 2 and Lot 3 of the Siloam Springs Warehouse addition within the green space buffer on both lots prior to building permit issuance. Staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 62-22? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. Don Rose, 2511 Marymount, Enid, Oklahoma. I represent Jiffy Trip. I'm here to answer any questions. We're looking forward to a second location in Siloam and appreciate all staff's help getting us to this point.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brad.
I've got 2 questions, and one for the gentleman that was just up there. Are we the only ones in Northwest Arkansas that are gonna have Jiffy Trips, or do you have a master plan of taking over Casey's and Come and Go?
We're taking them over. Yeah,
People are wondering, what is happening in Siloam?
I currently have under construction one in Fort Smith, Rogers, and property in Fayetteville we're getting close to. So I'm looking for.
You are
looking
taking
for
over
more.
Northwest
We're
Arkansas.
gonna. We feel like we've got something a little different, a little larger, more offerings, and hopefully it works.
We're kind of hoping for a Buc-ee's, but
Well, we're not quite there. Yeah, not quite that big.
So
No.
are we the only one to have 2? The only
Yes.
city to have
Yes.
2?
Currently, yeah. You're the only one to have 2. Correct.
And the second was on landscape, might be the city. Do we have and I looked through that, I might be blind, but do we have a caliper, a tree, so the diameter of a tree that we're required for landscaping?
Megan, thank you.
We have landscape requirements on our code for significant developments, and it specifically has a landscape list of trees that we require them to use. So it has to be on that approved list, and that list of trees has calipers listed of what we expect them to be.
And then are there any, as I looked at that, because on Carl there, we just had some power line issues with trees, right? So as we landscape along, we're sensitive towards that, so
Yeah,
we don't tear them out again in 10 years or whatever that might be.
On our list of trees, we actually have a list specifically for overhead electric that we use for those trees. And so in areas where overhead electric is going to be, our electric department chimes in and says we need to use those trees instead of the regular list of trees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question for Megan.
Mindy? Megan?
Hello.
The entrance exit on Elm Street, we're using the existing one that's there. Does that also meet the current guidelines as how far back it is from 412?
It does. It meets all the requirements for the width and also how far it is from the right of way where it intersects at 412 and South Elm Street.
We're not grandfathering in anything?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope, it meets those requirements. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 62-22?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Here. Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved, and I'm glad you're still here, Brad.
Thank you.
Next is Resolution 63-22, Preliminary Plat Development Permit, Castlewood Edition, 22100 to 22200 block of Davidson Road. I suppose, Megan, you are up again.
That's me. It's a Megan show in here. Okay. To begin with this one, I would like to point out that there was a slight mistype on condition number 5 on the front page of the staff report. This condition should state that the developer agreement will need to be identified prior to final plat approval. My apologies for this oversight. This is a preliminary plat request to subdivide one tract into 100 single-family lots on county land in order to create the Castlewood addition. This project was previously approved in July 2021. However, they have resubmitted due to the expiration of their 2021 approval. This project is located at the 22100 block to the 2200 block, of Davidson Road. It should be noted that this project cannot annex into the city due to the site not abutting the city limits. On the screen is the site plan for the proposed subdivision. Nothing has been changed on this plan since the previous approval, but as a refresher, there are 3 entrances accessing Davidson Road located here. Additionally, as I am sure you are aware, the frontage along Davidson is currently unpaved. The proposal is to pave 1,645 linear feet of Davidson Road. This does meet the county minimum standards for 20-foot asphalt or a 4-foot gravel shoulder on either side. In addition to that, the frontage of the development will have the half-street improvement, which includes the sidewalk and curb and gutter. Lastly, there is on-site detention located here. This is the overall site view of the property. You can see we have Davidson Road to the north, and this is the property where Castlewood will sit. Staff is recommending approval of this request with the following conditions. The first condition is relating to the need to acquire right-of-way on Davidson Road to make the necessary improvements to this road. The second condition is related to the need to acquire utility easement for water main and sanitary sewer lines, which needs to be extended to the subject property. These easements are off property and will need to be accepted via separate instrument, not on this plat. The third condition is related to the fact that the subject property is not within the city limits and is not abutting the city limits, so annexation is not possible at this time. Therefore, a pre-annexation agreement is needed so that the property owner and future property owners cannot contest annexation should it become feasible in the future for the property. This will be required prior to utility meter hookups. The fourth condition is related to the lots to be connected to city-operated electrical services. The applicant shall connect to city electric services prior to final plat acceptance. And finally, the fifth condition is on a developer agreement between the developer and the city that states that transformers will need to be identified for the development prior to final plat approval. Again, I would like to state that condition number 5 on the front page of your staff report has a slight mistype. Please see condition number 5 on the final page of the staff report to view the correct wording for this condition. Staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 63-22? If there is not, directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Brad.
So my concern on this development is much like off Lawless Road, and then we annexed a problem. And that's what I see here. And so if you go to the big site picture, there's a housing area to the right of that photo, which would be the east off Davidson Road. And if you've ever driven out on that, it's kind of has streets that are much that we dealt with Villa View, and we have down in Hummingburn Lane. I believe there's a lot of cement in there, and there's a lot of structural issues because at the time that development, there's no the pack base on that was not adequate. And so I'm not going to be sitting here, but if we go to annex that in, and if you've driven on Davidson Road lately, it's one of those things that I hate to be the guy, but I'm a down on that development until that whole area can be annexed in and we've got some control so that future boards and taxpayers don't inherit an issue. And that's what I see occurring out there if we don't annex that in and have complete control on everything. Those are my happy thoughts.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Come on in.
Could she show us where the city limits are in comparison to this property? So we can kind of get an idea of what stands in between the annexation.
So, oh, excuse me.
Thank you, Don.
I hope she asked for my help, so that's why I came up. Don Clark, Community Development Director. So the city limit line is right here. This black border is the city limit line, and so Davidson Road is is here where you see the mouse moving. As part of this approval for preliminary plat, they will have to build Davidson Road to our standard. So right now it's currently a gravel road, which we wouldn't accept. I think Director Burns, you're talking about the roads to this subdivision that is here that is currently outside it, correct? Hummingbird? Yep. So yeah, this is the Director Sappington, the black border is the city limit line.
Marla, you, can I ask a question for
Go ahead, I'm still
Hey,
looking.
Don, so does this road connect to Country Club? Does it connect anything, or are we just doing a little strip?
So it will be paved from across the frontage of this property all the way to Country Club Road. What is what they're required to build.
And we know diving down to Country Club is a whole drainage nightmare, right?
Yeah, so a lot of that's been addressed. The county has recently did some upgrades out there and put a new culvert underneath the road. So at the point in time that this would be constructed, it would have to meet those drainage requirements as well to flow the water to the corner of Country Club and Davidson.
In 10 years, when you're the city administrator, you'll be able to look at whoever's sitting here and go, Burns was incorrect. This is a great deal. Can I get the stamp? I mean, that's just my genuine concern, because we dealt with Lawless, we got all the feedback. And if we remember, over the past years, the feedback we've gotten from this particular area with drainage and the development that's happening out there. And so, my genuine concern is, once again, if we ever annex that in, we're annexing in another residential county problem, which is going to be upon the taxpayers, which will be me. And I have to raise these concerns. I mean, they're legitimate, so.
Understood. I think we as staff will be prepared to, when we bring those annexations to you, to bring a fiscal impact so you can understand what what those costs will entail for those specific annexations. We would anticipate majority annexations will come with some type of a cost. In this area here with Mission Hills and with Endura Park, that section of, Country Club has been widened and improved and added to curb and gutter. So as they go along, we're requiring those things when they're coming through with preliminary plat. So hopefully it'd be less of an impact at the time it's annexed.
On Mission Hills, and I'm placing that subdivision. Is there a way to connect to that proposed subdivision off of Mission? The back is it looks like it deadpans out, or that road. There's some connector roads in there that do cul-de-sacs, and
it will connect to this, but to get from here over to the other one, there's private property in between.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a
Yes,
question for
David?
Don. Don, I got confused. Did you say Davidson Road, when will it be paved?
So upon the development of this property, so before they can go to final plat, as part of those improvements, it would have to be
From where to where?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to draw. I've never drawn on this, but from this point out to sorry about not straight
to the bottom of that hill.
to Country Club. Yes, sir.
They'll do it.
Yes, sir.
Not the city.
Not us.
Okay. I mean, I drive that every week. That thing you're talking about, the city recently, or the county recently did, they didn't do much, because any rain at all, it's a mess, and two cars can't meet going up and down that hill. And they really need to widen it. But if somebody else is going to pave it, then I don't know how I can be against it. I didn't want us to be responsible, but it needs it badly. It severely needs paved.
You talking Davidson?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So will it go from the corner where it comes off of what's the Hyco when it comes off of there? Or
No, sir. So they would be responsible from Country Club to the limits of their property.
Just to their property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I don't think it's much further west from this property.
To Hyco?
Yeah, to Hyco. I don't think. I'm
That's correct.
I get mixed up though sometimes because there's a big dip at one point, and I can't remember where that is, but at least they're doing part of it. So I'm glad somebody's going to pave it. Is what I'm saying. I've prayed for years the county would pave it.
Thank you, David. Anyone else?
So Mission Hills is in the city limits.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But this one, there's no requirement when they come in. If we approve this, there's no requirement.
That's what Megan was speaking to the pre-annexation agreement. The only way we would approve the preliminary plat or recommend approval if they sign a pre-annexation agreement. And so what that means that when it meets their boundaries, they have to come in.
Okay.
They can't contest.
Right now, the only boundary is right to the east. I mean, that's the closest. There's a little bit of property there between Mission Hills and this development. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Alan
Yes, sir.
and Don, Don's statement is, I want to correct that statement. You made the statement that in order to approve the plat, we would have to sign a pre-annexation agreement. The reality is, in order to approve the extension of city utilities is the requirement to do a pre-annexation agreement. The county we have subdivision approval in the county, but we don't, if you meet the subdivision regs, we don't have zoning in the county. So meeting the subdivision regs is really all you have to do to get approval in the county. The extension of city utilities to that county subdivision is what triggers the pre-annexation agreement.
Absolutely. We use the preliminary plat process to make sure we get those. And then for any residential building outside our city limits, we use the building permit to get the pre-annexation agreement as well.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Marla.
The length for emergency vehicles, that back road, how long is it? And where, the placement of the fire hydrants and stuff in there?
Okay. So are you asking, make sure I understand you correctly, are you asking the distance from Hyco to here?
Well, we have a minimum distance that it has to be for our streets I think, was it 1,000 feet or something?
The remoteness rule, this meets that.
Okay.
Yes. In the fire code.
Being rural, that always, worries me.
Right.
Do we or have we considered sprinklers in the houses or anything?
The fire marshal has, he's a part of this and he's reviewed it. It meets the fire code and the remoteness rule. So we couldn't require that. We could suggest it, but it meets the remoteness rule for the fire code. And then with them upgrading the street, it meets the rule for the fire apparatus standard as well. And then in the subdivision, they will have the adequate fire hydrants and things that are needed.
I just worry sometimes about our minimum standards, and I say that throughout our code, that is our minimum. Should we raise our minimum standard? And this would be one place that I would think that may need to. So thank you.
Anyone else? If
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
I'm going to beat this up one more time, Don, because I want to make sure you understand how much I appreciate this development. Lawless, we had to put in a packed road for means of egress, right? And, the access roads. And as you look at this, I just can't help myself, but I don't want to call it a nightmare because it's just after Halloween, so that wouldn't be incorrect. I see this as, in order for me to get buy-in, and why I'm going to vote no, it's real simple. We need to acquire that rural piece of property off Mission Hills, tie that into the city, and complete annexation and wrap this thing up. That's the healthy way to do it, because we're going to wake up and we're going to inherit a subdivision in the county, and we've already done it once. And once again, I'm going to beat another dead horse, is we sat here as a board collectively over the past several years worried about additional traffic flow on roads. And here we are, 0 improvements on Country Club, except for where you access these new subdivisions. And now we're putting more traffic on that road without additional turn lanes or widening the road, because after the subdivision past Webbville, headed to the south, it becomes a choke point again at Lazy Boy. And, we haven't improved the road for the impact of these additional residential neighborhoods. And so we're not addressing it. If you go down Country Club where they put the overpass in, you can see the width of that road, and that width of the road needs to go all the way down to Davidson Road before we continue to put any more residential out there. It's common sense, it's logic, it's the right thing to do. We've heard the people complain about it, and that's where I stand on that. And I appreciate developers investing in the city of Siloam, but sometimes we've talked about this before, sometimes we have to say no so we can play catch up. And we have an issue with catch up because, not catch up, but it's going to come up in the next budget cycle, is we're having problems getting bids on streets, right? Everybody's booked. Nobody needs the work. And so long term, we aren't going to address it long term, because on the master plan, we have the revenue, but there's no resources out there to do the infrastructure. And so that's what concerns me about that. I wish we would connect that to the city, button it up, and take full ownership of it, and not wait and depend on the county. It just doesn't feel healthy for the city overall, from my standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
I know no one needs to have a heart attack, but I am going to agree with Director Burns. The question I had, Don, on the photo overhead view of this was at one time already planned to be developed, right? You could kind of see the streets there, or the roads that they were. Do you know, did it change ownership, or did it fall through with the county, or do you have any idea?
I can't specifically remember what year it was.
It's been a while, I know, because it's all overgrown.
So they started the streets in 21.
No, well, it was before it was sold in 21. It was, I believe, in 07 or 08, planned for a subdivision.
Right.
Then it sold to a new owner in 21. It came through planning commission, came through board approval, and then that developer sold it. The reason why I had to come back is because, unbeknownst to the new purchaser, it had their approval had expired, and so it had to come back through. They bought it, went out and got ready to start the construction, and when they came to us, we said, you don't have an approval, it's expired. So this is why it's coming back to you, even though it was approved in 21.
I was looking again at that, and I'm pretty sure where this is only about halfway down between Hyco and the country club. So they would only be paving about half the street, really.
That's correct.
I thought it was more, but no, it's probably about half. And the only question I have is, do we have, and this is a Jay question, do we have the legal right to say, only because we're not connecting it annexation-wise, can we turn something down like this? Jay's got to get his mic on.
Yeah, there we go. So your question is, can we turn it down for what reason?
Well, because it's not currently annexed or even planned to be in it, they're not going to immediately demand they're not going to lobby for annexation right away. So,
right.
Is there, or whatever other reasons Brad was saying, is there a way that we legally can?
Well, that wouldn't be a reason. That's not something we can hold them to as long as they sign the pre-annexation agreement. That's all that's legally required that they do. As far as turning it down for some other reason, they have to find that somehow it does not meet the stated criteria for a subdivision development, which, having been through the planning commission meetings and meeting with staff, I believe it does meet the criteria overall, but obviously there could be some aspect that maybe hasn't been fully explored that might provide a basis, but I'm not aware of one off the top of my head.
I just remember over the years, being informed that you can't just summarily not accept something, but I see a lot of reasons that this is questionable, as Brad is pointing out.
Madam Mayor?
Are you through?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay. Yes, Mindy.
I understand the concerns. We haven't even talked much about the drainage issues. I remember hearing from citizens out in that area that have had concerns about drainage. We talked a little bit about that, I guess, but we approved this a year ago, and there aren't many changes since last year, right?
Correct.
So that's tough.
And on the annexation, it's not that they're against it. They just don't have the ability to annex because it's not contiguous to state law. That has to be contiguous.
Right. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Philip. I'm sorry. Do you want to say something?
Oh, Philip, you can first.
Go ahead.
So I would just say, if the board is considering denying the application at this time, I might ask you to table it and give staff an opportunity to go through it, because Director Allen, you're spot on, and Jay's spot on that. Again, in the county we have subdivision, and our subdivision regulations apply. And if this meets every one of those subdivision regulations, turning it down could be determined by a court to be arbitrary and capricious, and you would end up, having to approve it and potentially losing a lawsuit. There may be I'm not going to say there is, but there may be, a chink in the armor somewhere to develop a motion to stand on solid ground for denial. But as Director Hunt said, this came through previously. It was reviewed at the Planning Commission. It was approved by this board. As Don stated, the developers at that time sold it. New developers bought it, didn't know there was a clock ticking. They have spent money buying the infrastructure, ordering pipes and all that stuff. And then when they came in to get their construction moving, it was determined that their plan had lost its approval. So if the board is leaning that way, I would rather than to try to have a reason for denial on the fly, that we have some time to see if we can develop a reason for denial that would withstand any legal challenge, if that's the way the board is leaning, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Philip. Lisa.
I agree with Director Burns. When we pave that road, we're forcing them to go down to Country Club, or did I say it right? And have we looked at how many accidents and where are we at? Where's that on the street to get that widened, to get it fixed, get it repaired? Where are we at on those?
So because this is not in the subdivision city limits, let me go back here. And this is the city limit line. That portion of Davidson and Country Club is also outside the city limits. So we only have so much we could require at that point in time.
May I,
Yes.
Don, on the street paving, are they building and widening Davidson to a city standard or to a county standard?
We can only hold them to the county standard.
And is it that our our master street plan does not list Davidson, or is our master street plan go out that far?
Do you recall? Or defer that to the city engineer, Kevin Moore.
Kevin Moore, city engineer.
Our master street plan does go out past towards Davidson. I believe that's a future collector.
And again,
I believe that the master street plan, I don't remember
Yeah,
what
would you
it,
pull
it's
the
called
mic?
for 32 feet wide. I apologize. It's called for 32 feet wide by our master street plan. And so we have proposed that they build across the frontage of their property. They would do their half of the 32 feet. They would do 16. Sorry.
So, Kevin, while
So Philip, did you have something you wanted to?
So, Kevin, in the master street plan, Davidson would be a collector 32 feet wide, correct?
Correct.
And so what?
Sorry, major local.
Time
I
that
apologize.
they would build.
So they will build across their frontage. It's a major local. And so they would build 16 feet on their side and then 11 feet for the county standard on the north side of the road that they don't own. And then for the gap between their property and Country Club, they would build 22 feet in width, which is the county standard.
What's the width today? Do we know?
I do not know that. I would estimate 20 feet or so.
So, as it relates to streets, then the question seems to be, maybe, is it possible or not for the city to enforce the city standard street section on that portion of the county road between the subdivision and Country Club? And we believe that's not allowed to be enforced. Is that, Jay?
If I may, yeah, it's been a couple of years, so I can't cite you the state statutes off the top of my head, but we went through all this with the original developer before it was sold, and when this first came up, and we did determine at that time that yes, we could require them to build to our city standards on the frontage, which we are requiring, but as far as the rest of it, since it's not in the city limits, we could only hold them to the county standard.
Thank you. I'm trying to get that into the record. That's how we got to where we are with wider portions in front of the subdivision and not continuing that width from the subdivision to Country Club because of the inability of cities to enforce their master street plan in the county.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, but at some point, would we not have to continue that to Country Club?
And I'll let Don
Road,
speak to it,
the
but
road.
the ultimate
Future developers, I would
future
imagine.
development would do that, or if future development isn't going to happen, then the city would likely step in at some point.
I would like to table this until the next meeting so that we can get some clearer perspective and some clearer answers. I'm not sure what those are, but I would like to table it till the next meeting.
Okay, so before I accept a motion, Lisa, did you get your question answered? Yes,
And
okay.
I'll second her.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I would like to speak to this if possible.
Yes, sir.
I can see concerns that we have from the board members. And I don't think this is going to be our sole time that we work with this because we are a growing community. However, I don't see where we should take a developer who is doing everything correctly within the scope of what we have asked of them, and we're looking at not approving this based on a road that they have no control over. So I think that we're stepping in an area that we need to be very careful. Just because if they're willing to do the curb and gutter to build this properly to where we can annex this, but we're wanting to say no to it based upon Country Club. yes, they do correlate as far as people getting to work, getting home, school, and what have you. But as far as what they're doing and building everything, they're meeting those criteria. I don't think we should hold that against them. And I'm for tabling this so we can get clarity on this, make sure we do it right. I do appreciate Director Burns and Director Allen's concern for it, but I think we also need to look at they're doing what they have done, what they're supposed to be doing. So let's look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So Carol, do you have a motion then to table?
You have a motion to table till the next meeting.
And Lisa, you have a second?
Mm-hmm.
We have a motion and a second to table. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Thank you. And just so we're clear, I'm assuming we are tabling this until our next scheduled meeting on November the 15th. Is
I
that
thought
correct?
that's what my motion was.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Next is contracts. Memorandum of Understanding number 2 with the Siloam Springs School District School Resource Officers. Chief Gilbert.
City Board, Mayor Alan Gilbert, Chief of Police, Siloam Springs. Back in September 6th of this year, we entered an agreement with the school board. What I bring in front of you today is an amended MOU with the school board. This is something that the school board and I have looked into. This isn't just something the last few months. It's something we've worked on for over a year. And we're looking at adding 2 extra SROs, police officers in the schools, and an additional $70,000 for equipment, upfits of vehicles, 100% of their overtime. Staff's available for questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the contract that's being presented? There is not. Directors?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
I have a question. Chief, I got a little confused. We've already approved the 348,000 for the 5 officers. Is that right? That was several months back.
Yes, sir. 194.
Oh, 194.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With the new agreement, that goes to 348.
Okay. I got mixed up on the numbers because I then saw 327 later, so I got you.
That's why I call Christina all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers in this page. Okay, thank you.
Anyone
Yeah.
else?
And I'm all for more SROs. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. This is
The,
something we've been working on with the violence we've seen around our nation. Our number one priority is our children.
Yeah, I'm glad the school is all behind this too.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you, David. Yes, Carol.
I think we all feel the same way, that we want to protect our students when we hear everything that's going on in different areas. So I am pleased that we are thinking of adding on more. So I am in favor of this.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mindy.
I was just talking with someone from my ward the other day, and he was giving me sort of a list of things that he would like to see for Siloam. And one of them is he doesn't want Siloam to ever be in the same situation that some of these other cities have been in with school shootings and school violence. And so I'm very much in support of this. I think it was great that we had the 5 SROs. 7's going to be better.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Marla.
just the mere presence of having these ladies and gentlemen in the school is such a big asset. After teaching in the school district for many years there, the SRO is not just a police officer. They become a friend, they're trusted, and also they talk to the kids. And I think it's a wonderful program, and wish we could do more.
It is an excellent program. For those who don't know, I was an SRO. I started this first SRO program in Mississippi back in 1999 and served as an SRO, and it was a very rewarding job.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else?
Mayor, I was just
Yes.
going to point out for the public, we are providing $70,000. Is that right, for new training? Is that right?
No, sir. The school will be providing $70,000.
That's okay. That's
for
about
that.
right. But I'm just glad that I echo Marla. the officers many times can become not just a friend to our students and staff, teaching staff, but they can many times be so proactive that they prevent things by just being an ear to the students and hearing things before it becomes. I think everyone saw the big disaster that happened in the small town. Was it Uvalde, Texas?
Yes, I think you're
just,
correct, sir.
How much could have been fixed and done if they had more proactive look at that. And so I'm in favor of anything we can do. And I'm just so appreciative to the Siloam Springs School District for wanting to partner with the city to do this.
Yes, sir.
Chief.
Yes, sir. One of the things once if this is approved tonight, I'll probably bring amendment back for 2 vehicles, and that's part of that $70,000 to help upfit those. So they've really stepped up to help us there.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Siloam Springs School District?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is our staff reports. We have our 2022 third quarter financial report, the September financials, and our administrator's report. Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As previously stated, I wanted to start providing a more detailed financial report on a quarterly basis. And so you have in front of you a memo from Christina, and I'm just going to run through the highlights from it. So to date, in the general fund, the revenue is up just over 7%, mainly due to sales tax receipts and the police officer stipend grant and the tree grant from the Walton Family Foundation for Parks and Recs. The expenses, have increased about 9.5% compared to the same time period last year. That main drivers are, again, the police officer stipend grant and fuel for vehicles. That's the biggest expense that we've had over and above our budgets. There are a number of large capital projects that have not incurred expenses so far. The outdoor warning system, which you recently approved, boardroom upgrades, renovations to the skate park. You denied the going forward with the 412 medium, so that's off the list. Some of those items have been bid out and presented to you, and you've approved them. Others were not approved, and so that they won't be moving forward. In the street fund, the revenue is up almost 12% compared to the same time period last year, and that is mainly due to sales tax receipts from the state aid and also some grant funds. Expenses for project are up about $60,000. Mainly, the one thing that you do need to know, and Director Burns, you mentioned it earlier in the discussion about the preliminary plat. We bid the Lake Francis Drive rebuild. We got 0 responses. No contractor bid that project. So we are going to try to rebid it and hopefully get some responses and probably bring that back if we do get responses to the board at the last meeting in December if we get responses. In the utility fund, our utility sales are up almost 6% over the same time period last year. A lot of that is due to service extension fees. Our service extension fees are up almost $420,000 or 92% related to growth. Expenses have increased about 8% over the same time last year, mainly due to some personnel cost and debt interest on the water treatment plant upgrade and depreciation. But everything is still within budget as far as the grand totals. You have the September financials before you. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact myself or Christina. As it relates to my administrator's report, I have 3 expenditures to report that are just outside or above the $30,000. $33,400 in the airport for 8,000 gallons of Jet A fuel for resupplying. $33,500 in the electric department for 2,000 tons of base That's laying down a base for the wire shed that was part of their capital projects, basically for inventory, a place to lay down some of the inventory. $34,400 for police for a metal building with installation and a concrete slab at the training center at the gun range. Per Resolution 6121, $78,665 in the electric for 7 25 kVA single-phase transformers, 2 112.5 kVA three-phase transformers, and 2 150 kVA three-phase transformers. And all that's for, all those are pad-mounted transformers, and that's for inventory and new customers and maintenance. $54,250 in electric for 70 60-inch metal ground sleeves for inventory and general line extensions. $94,250 in electric for 65 60-inch metal enclosures for those pad-mounted transformers. In the Siloam Springs Comprehensive Plan, which you approved a few months ago, received an award by the Arkansas chapter of the American Planning Association for achievement in comprehensive plan development. And that's a very innovative accomplishment for the city in developing a community plan, and I thought you should be aware of that. I think, Marla, you were on that committee. We thank everybody who was on the comprehensive plan committee, the public who had input, and the board ultimately for adopting that comprehensive plan, because it is something that will carry the city forward, and you can use it. As was stated, it's a guide, but it's intended to be looked at as we move forward with future developments and as the city grows. Yesterday was the last day for accepting utility commission applications. So I have begun scheduling those interviews for Monday, November the 7th, and Thursday, November 17th, beginning at 6 p.m. The interview committee, you received your copies of the applications tonight. I've set that up for basically 20-minute intervals so that you may not stick to 20 minutes, but the applicants don't have to come here at 6 o'clock and wait till 8 o'clock to be interviewed. The last thing on my comments, which is not on your written report, Director Burns, Director Ressler mentioned it tonight that you had asked for clarification on the chamber report. I didn't remember it. I went back and looked at my notes. I made the note. I skipped over it. So I apologize for that. I think you got your clarification tonight, but I did not reach out to the chamber after that last meeting because I overlooked that note, and I apologize for that. Madam Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Next is our director's reports. And Mindy, we will start with you, and David, we will come down to you. And then I would ask that you hold your motion to adjourn, please.
Hold what?
Your motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Mindy?
Okay, just want to congratulate Detective Corporal Ron Coble again for his being honored with the Bridging the Gap Award. We appreciate that. Again, appreciate those that came out to speak in favor of the cooperative agreement. It was great to have all the kids here. So glad they were here. And then just another statement of support for our SRO officers and all that our public safety personnel in general do for the city of Siloam and the citizens. I do have a question that's kind of come up. I think I've asked this before, but it still seems to come up on occasion. And so I just want to make I just want to confirm some things. And this has to do with East Main Street improvements. And I don't know if Dawn is still here or maybe Philip can answer these questions. There still seems to be concern about a roundabout being included in this East Main Street improvement design, and I thought we had decided as a board based on citizen input that we did not want a roundabout. That's one question. I'll go ahead and ask all three. Have we been given any kind of final price? There's sort of a price circulating out there, but I wasn't aware that we had been given a final price yet. And then I was under the impression that there would be a bare bones, low cost sort of general street repair option presented. Is that still the case? Will that be part of the presentation? I know it hasn't been part of the presentation at the public meetings, but I wouldn't think it would be if it's a general street repair. So
So the last conversation that we had with Craft and Toll, we asked them, you know, that to give us a design without a roundabout, to realign that intersection of Washington. We asked them to give us a design and price just for a sidewalk or side path without any major street improvements, and to, as you called it, bare bones, but to do what would be the minimum street improvements that relate to street, curb and gutter, and drainage typically. I got information last week with some very preliminary numbers and some sort of preliminary designs as is relating to get to the final engineering drawings that could be going to bid if that's what the board has chosen to do. I haven't spent very much time reviewing those, but the roundabout is, we would never bring that. It was a discussion at one time. Clearly there was no significant interest from the community for that, so we wouldn't bring that to the board. When the time comes that we can go through their numbers and go through their design, we will bring it back to the board at some point. It would likely be something that I would suspect, if it ever is to go forward, we've talked about it in the past, that from the staff perspective, we would probably come to this board and ask for permission to go after some grants, to do some opportunity for grants, because it's likely still an expensive project. I don't think it's $10 million. Again, I looked at the numbers very briefly. I don't remember if it's $5 or $6 million on the bare bones, or if it's just the sidewalk by itself, and what that cost would be. But at some point, something's going to have to be done with Main Street. It's the question of exactly what.
Thank you. That all? That's all for me. All right, Brad?
Well, Madam Mayor, I didn't want to talk about East Main, but I'll give you an example. We recently had a drainage issue on East Main, and they used the equipment to clean the drain out, and the drainage pipe is so old it disintegrated. So eventually you're going to have to do something that looks like you care. That's basically where we're at. Just look like we care. It's proven that by building up downtown, it is our core, just like your body, and it's healthy for the whole community, including the corridor. Everybody is a healthier place with a healthy downtown. That's a no-brainer. The second no-brainer is I still love Siloam, whether you like roundabouts or not. I can go to the corridor and get all the roundabouts I want. I'm okay. But what I like most about Siloam Springs and Northwest Arkansas, if you look around the nation and around the globe, we are extremely fortunate to be in the position that we're at. And the chamber just spoke tonight of all the positive things that are going out. A board has to ask questions. That's our job. And then these entities give us answers. We don't have to like them. We just ask questions. And it's hard to, just hard to find a negative spin of what's happening in this community. I mean, I don't know what to say. I went paddling at the kayak park with my dog upstream because it's glorious this time of the year. Not a lot of people around. And then on the way back, I purposely went down Mount Olive Street just to enjoy the Halloween traffic. And my dog seemed to really dig it. So, you know, I'm extremely thankful, and I'm glad we have challenges as a board. And I think overall we're in a very good position, and it's good to be in Northwest Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Marla?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the privilege to go out and tour the Wolka Park today. Beautiful weather. They're doing wonderful things out there. Mr. Brown took me around, and it's exciting. And to know that the kids are going to be riding in the woods, that's what nature's for. And I just think that's amazing that we're going to let the kids go out there, and they're going to create trails and connect town with out there. So I wished I could still ride, because it's just beautiful. It was so beautiful today. You just can't imagine how pretty it was out there. Appreciate the chamber being here tonight, answering some of the questions we brought up. My concern is I don't, and I know some other directors may feel differently, but I don't feel like the chamber is something that we need to fund. I believe it's just their duty. I don't believe that we need to pay them to do what their responsibility is. Main Street, questionable. Museum, I think we need to pour money into the museum or take it into the city. Just, you know, I don't know how much that we give the chamber, maybe 30,000, and they gave the golf course 15. So, you know, I don't understand the spending there. But they do wonderful things for the community, but it's their job. And I think that once you do your job, we shouldn't have to pay for that because they're using the city as their resource, and it's just it's hard to explain. But I think the chamber, there's wonderful people down there. I love Lindsay to death. She does a wonderful job, and that's her job. But I don't feel that we should be funding nonprofits. I operate a nonprofit. I don't ask the city for any help. And I think that's just the stance that I'm going to say about that. Then I go on to our codes, and I worry about our standards when we do the drive-throughs, experiencing some really narrow drive-throughs. And I think that needs to be revisited. I've only got a couple of more meetings before my time's up. And I just think that the code needs to be revisited. I think that if we lower our minimum standards so we can get developers here, I don't think that's what we need to be doing. We need to raise our standards and get the developers here to meet our standards and not drop ours to meet theirs. And I think that's very, very important. And let me see. Oh, one other thing, the property on Washington Street that has the drain ditch that goes through it, I think the city needs to purchase that and help that gentleman out. And that was, you know, several months ago he was here wanting to develop it. And to me, it's just undevelopable land. So I think the city needs to look at that to help with some of the drainage that is coming off of the 412. And Manna Center's doing their holiday meal bags. We've got 800 of them out in the community getting filled right now. That's the kind of community we have. They're eager to help, and it's wonderful to be part of this city. So that's my report.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa?
Okay. I want to remind everybody, the Veterans Day Parade is Saturday, November 5th, starting at 9:30 a.m. It starts at the National Guard Armory, and it ends at the Masonic Lodge. Thank you to the American Legion and the VFW, not only for serving, but doing this for our community. I had family here for the last week and a half from Phoenix, Arizona, and my husband had his sister up here from Louisiana. She is familiar with theirs. She grew up here, but she was impressed with everything going on in Siloam. My family from Phoenix, Arizona, they kept me busy, to say the least, but they were impressed because they could walk down the streets and not have to worry about a stabbing or a shooting or something horrible happen. And so I want to thank the police department and the fire department and everybody that contributes to our community. They're thinking about moving here now, so that says a lot. And as far as the chamber, I am supportive of the chamber. Part of the AML, Philip is on the economic development panel for the AML, and I remember watching that, and he was on stage, and right next to him, on the left side of him, was a lady who talked about the value of a partnership between a city and a community, in a chamber of commerce. And I haven't forgot that, and the words that she spoke, and and how important it is that we do not lose that. And so I see a value in the Chamber of Commerce. So I do get complaints that we support Main Street, and I've always supported them. I've always said yes. But I do get complaints that we support Main Street, who only takes care of Main Street. It doesn't take care of all those businesses in other places of town. And so the Chamber does do that. And so I see value in the Chamber, and I will always support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Arthur, thank you for bringing some clarity this evening. Hope your eye gets completely well very soon. I'm very glad to see that we're bringing up some more SRO officers, just accentuating the fact that we take it seriously. Safety is first in our community. Looking forward to doing some interviews for the Utilities Commission Board. Hopefully we'll get 5 people that will represent the community as a whole well, and we'll see some good decisions made, and the board can be a part of that and back them up. Very glad to see a fall season where the sun shines and it's 75 degrees. I can do this for a while, but thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Carol?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Tyler Carroll and Matt Timbo for bringing their group. Also I guess it's the NWA Trailblazers for what they're going to be doing for the trails going out to the Woka Park. That is such an exciting area for this community and so much that they're going to bring into. I also want to thank Arthur for coming here and giving us his explanation. I think that's important. I do support the Chamber. There's only so much legally we can do, but I do support them. And I know that he's got some other Chamber members here, so thank you for coming. I want to thank everybody that participated in the trick-or-treat downtown. I've always been amazed of the small town atmosphere that I so cherish here, and what they do for the community and for the children, not only at Halloween, but other holidays. That's one of the things that makes me love Siloam Springs. There's so much that goes on in this community that we don't really thank people for, but we've got a lot of volunteers that do a lot, and I think that they should be thanked for. I don't have names, but I want to thank those people that give their time and service to making Siloam what it is. And then I want to thank or congratulate, and I've got to find his name here, Detective, is it Coble?
Coble. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Coble.
for his award and for what he's done for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wanted to congratulate Detective Corporal Ron Coble on the Bridging the Gap Award. That's quite an honor, and I know he has seen a lot and done a lot, and it's been hard on his life to go through what he has, and I think that's a very honorable position that he does for our city. Second of all, I want to stress how we have got such a great example of leadership at our police department. Our chief supports the staff. He is an example of a true leader. He has a proactive approach, and I hear this from many of his personnel that look up to him, and I appreciate the job he does for our city. I also want to say, Lisa, you said what you did about the Chamber. I did not always support the Chamber, and I think everybody in this town knows I didn't always support the Chamber because they didn't always do a great deal. They took a lot of credit, didn't always do it. Other businesses did it, and I think it's been a huge change of leadership. I think it's a great leadership team with Arthur being the CEO and the chairman of the board, Cami Havner, is here, Cami Akins, And I'm not just saying that because I've seen this young lady grow up her whole life, and she's from a generational family, but they are good together. They work well together, and they represent the city of Siloam very well. And so I am a prime example of someone who can turn over a whole new leaf at looking at an organization, as I have with the chamber. I also want to bring up a topic that not our state representative, our former state representative, Robin Lundstrom, who's still a state representative, but she asked me to address, to stress the importance of voting no on issue 4, the cannabis legalization for recreational marijuana. It is a far cry from the Medical Marijuana Act we have now. As Robin told me, what the proponents could not get away with in Colorado, they are getting away with in Arkansas. Our downtowns will be ruined because every previous ordinance that state and local has will be thrown out. The shops will be able to basically set up almost anywhere. All people using marijuana recreationally will have nothing keeping them from showing up to work high as a kite. And if you can imagine your surgeon or your dentist getting ready to work on you, because nothing's going to prevent that, and the cartels will end up owning our state, as Robin explained to me. No matter what your feelings on liberty and freedoms, and I have a lot of feelings toward libertarianism, this is something that if you value our quality of life and our way of life in Siloam Springs, in the state, please vote no against this. Some of the points that, this came from Robin's Facebook page, and some of the points that I'll just point out: it allows unrestricted amounts of THC to be injected into candy, cookies, and drinks and sold as edibles. It allows the sale of THC in any form or concentration. Dispensaries can grow up to 100 mature plants, and they can process marijuana. The amendment repeals all taxes on medical marijuana. It sets a 10% state tax rate for recreational marijuana in addition to a regular sales tax, and no more taxes can be levied on it by any government ever, unless it's ever repealed. The Arkansas legislature is prohibited from regulating medical or recreational marijuana if this passes. The amendment prohibits local communities from regulating marijuana, including passing zoning ordinances or taxing it. Cities and counties can prohibit marijuana dispensaries only by circulating petitions to bring it to a vote, but they cannot prohibit the cultivation facilities. Owners of facilities in Arkansas do not have to be Arkansas residents. No criminal background checks are required for dispensary or cultivation employees. Background checks are also not required for owners who own less than 5% interest in a marijuana business. Employers cannot restrict, they can restrict, but they cannot prohibit an employee's use of marijuana recreationally. People driving under influence will be killing kids. I think all you have to do is look at the death rates and the crime rates in Colorado as an example of what could happen here. The Medical Marijuana Act, as it was passed several years ago, has been fine, but it was very specific and regulated and taxed. And I don't want our state to become owned by drug cartels, and they will. They'll own this state if this passes, and I hope everyone gets out and votes no on issue number 4. And then lastly, I was unable to make it to the first August city board meeting, but when I reviewed the meeting, when I was able to, I was frustrated by some comments made. The argument that the misinformation that the East Main project has never been $10 million, it's only ever been $8 million, but yet that's not true. Mr. Patterson has actually said that it could be up to $10 million. The statements that this is misinformation when it started, yes, it's 6 or 7, but it's right out there. Has been said it. It has been put on Facebook pages as fact. So You know, I don't see a reason to redesign Washington and East Main intersection. I've got friends who overlook that and don't see a problem with. There's not even a traffic light there. And I don't see a huge problem with East Main in general. There are much worse streets in this community. But it's hard to criticize about a number and say 10 million's never been brought up when it has, and has in fact been, as far back as May, put as fact on web pages. Brad, you followed the misinformation stating that the third lawnmower recently purchased had been a budgeted item, but that was untrue. It was not budgeted. And your statement that we're always on budget, the argument I had at the time was, why don't we hold the money and not spend it and try to come under budget? That was an argument I thought was appropriate. And you know, why only have public meetings with two options? Which we did. We only had public meetings with two options, or roundabout or no roundabout. And to hear now that there is a proposal for a low budget that never was put into a public meeting. So I just see something that I was not on the board at the time that it was brought and proposed, and I just don't like information being put out that this number 10 million was never brought up when it has been several times. And you said not to ask for a what do you call it? No adjournment? We're going into executive? Is that, or do you want a motion for that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. So at this time, we do have the executive session on our agenda. However, I did have a board member that asked me to consider a request to have this executive session extended or to postpone until our next regular meeting, which would be November the 15th. This is out of consideration for our administrator and his family. I checked with the city attorney to make sure that that was something that we could do, and he tells me that it is. However, we do need to address that and vote on it in an open meeting. So, I will tell you this request did not come from our administrator. He did not ask for this. However, I do agree with that suggestion, but the decision is yours. So, before I would ask for a motion to go into executive session, I would ask for a motion that we postpone this until our November 15th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will take a roll call vote.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes. Motion is approved unanimously. We will postpone the executive session until November the 15th.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, sir. Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.